South Korea's journey to democracy is a powerful story of courage, sacrifice, and the unstoppable will of its people. From early student protests to massive nationwide uprisings, South Koreans repeatedly stood up against authoritarian rule to demand freedom and justice. Landmark events like the April Revolution, the Gwangju Uprising, and the June Democratic Movement shaped the nation's path and inspired a new era of democratic rights. This history isn't just political, it's a testament to the strength of ordinary citizens who changed their country through extraordinary action. Authoritarian rule of Syngman Rhee. Syngman Rhee, also known as Rhee Swangjiman, or by his art name Unam, was a Korean politician who served as the first president of South Korea from 1948 to 1960. Syngman Rhee was elected president in 1948 and maintained power through rigged elections and suppression of opposition. He amended the constitution to allow himself to remain in office indefinitely. His government was widely seen as corrupt and repressive. During his presidency, he purged the National Assembly members who opposed his dictatorship and executed the leader Cho Bong-am for treason. He won the March 1960 election with 88.7% of the votes. This implausible result was the result of election fraud. The day of the election the Liberal Party had stuffed ballots, switched ballots, and removed opposition ballots. On the eve of balloting, the police had also fired upon a group of Democratic Party supporters, killing 8. South Koreans in the city of Masan protested against the fraudulent election. On April 11, 1960, the tortured body of Kim Chu-yeol, a student who had participated in the anti-government demonstration, was found by a fisherman in the bay near Masan. He had been fatally struck by a tear gas canister and had fragments of a tear gas bomb in his eyes. Despite efforts by the Rhee administration to keep this news quiet, word spread throughout the country, reaching students in Seoul. On April 19, about 30,000 students started the demonstration in the morning. By midday, over 100,000 South Koreans poured out into the streets, shouting, "We demand new elections, defend democracy to the death, the Syngman Rhee government must resign, and rehold March 15 elections." The protesters also burned 5 police stations, sacked the office of Seoul Sinmun, a daily newspaper, and broke into Liberal Party headquarters. The protesters first held the demonstration in front of the National Assembly building. They then pressed on toward Gyeongmuri, also known as the Blue House, which is the presidential mansion. On the road towards the Blue House, the protesters encountered police forces. The student spokesman told the police that the protesters simply wanted to present a petition to the president. The police ordered the protesters to disperse. However, the students continued to press on toward the Blue House. The police fired tear gas shells at the protesters, but the demonstration continued on. The police then fired volley after volley. A state of martial law was imposed and ROK army troops moved into Seoul to enforce the 7 o'clock curfew. At the end of the day, the casualties were 130 dead and over 1,000 wounded or injured. Rhee's resignation. In an attempt to end the protests and appease the South Korean people, President Rhee made all cabinet members and Liberal Party officers resign on April 21, 1960. On April 23, President Rhee offered a counterproposal in which he agreed to governmental reorganization and the restoration of the post of premier. However, the students rejected this proposal, as it did not meet their demand for a completely new election. The protests continued and in response, on April 24, Rhee announced that he would be cutting all ties with the Liberal Party. Even this move did not appease the public. On April 25, 300 university professors joined the protest and led a demonstration in front of the National Assembly building. The professors read a list of demands, of which the most important was the resignation of President Rhee. Another 15 civilians were killed and over 200 injured. However, as the protest pressed on, the martial law command under General Song Yo-chon finally refused to fire on the demonstrators and turned its back against the Rhee regime. On April 26, President Rhee issued his formal resignation and went into exile in Hawaii, which brought an end to the demonstrations. An interim government drafted a new constitution. New elections were held in July and the candidate for the opposition Democratic Party, Yoon Pasun, was elected as president. Ri's resignation marked the end of the First Republic of South Korea. But Yoon Pasun's presidency did not last for a long time. His government struggled to control inflation and unemployment, and there were dissatisfactions in the country. And in a short time, the Second Republic was overthrown. Military coup of May 16, 1961. The April Revolution opened a small window during which the left regained some of its losses, with large increases in the number of labor unions and union members. However, before labor, students, and leftists had a chance to grab power back from the ruling class elite, labor and democracy activists were labeled as agents of social agitation and political instability. General Park Chung-hee led a coup on May 16, 1961, putting an immediate end to movements for unification, democratic governance, and worker control over factories. General Park Chung-hee served as the president of South Korea from 1963 to 1979. Under his leadership, South Korea underwent significant industrialization and economic reforms, transforming the nation into a burgeoning global market. However, this economic success was marred by his authoritarian governance, marked by the repression of political dissent, imprisonment, and execution of opponents. Park's rule saw the banning of political parties and the establishment of martial law, leading to a controversial legacy that remains divisive today. While some view him as a transformative leader who revitalized the economy, others criticize him as a dictator who violated human rights. His tenure is also noted for the establishment of diplomatic relations with Japan, which was met with mixed reactions from the South Korean populace. Assassination. The assassination of President Park Chung-hee on October 26, 1979 marked a significant turning point in the country's political landscape. Park played a crucial role in South Korea's economic development, but his increasingly autocratic regime faced growing dissent. The assassination was carried out by Kim Jae-gyu, an officer and close associate of Park, after a dinner meeting where tensions over political issues escalated. After the assassination of President Park Chung-hee in October 1979, Prime Minister Choi Kyu-ha was elected president in the December 1979 elections. However, General Chun Doo-hwan staged the coup d'état of December 12 and effectively took control of the government, making President Choi a figurehead. On August 16, 1980, following the coup d'état of May 17, Chun removed Choi from office so he could become president himself. Chun Doo-hwan's presidency was characterized by a period of authoritarian rule. Chun ruled with an iron fist, suppressing political dissent and controlling the media. His government was known for human rights abuses. While he implemented economic reforms that helped stabilize the country, his legacy is heavily tainted by his authoritarian actions. Gwangju Uprising. The Gwangju Uprising, a turning point in South Korea's fight for democracy. The Gwangju Uprising, also known as the May 18 Democratic Uprising, was a critical moment in South Korea's modern history. Occurring between May 18 and May 27, 1980, in the southwestern city of Gwangju, the event began as a peaceful student protest but escalated into a full-scale civilian rebellion after the military's violent suppression. Universities were shut down, political activities banned, and press freedoms curtailed. These measures sparked widespread unrest, particularly among students and intellectuals who demanded the restoration of democracy. The uprising began on May 18, when students from Cheonam National University gathered to protest the closure of their university. The government dispatched special paratrooper units, who responded with extreme violence, attacking demonstrators and bystanders alike. As news of the brutality spread, the local population of Gwangju joined the movement in solidarity. Over the following days, the demonstrations grew into a full-scale revolt as civilians began arming themselves by raiding local police stations and military depots. Gwangju, effectively isolated from the rest of the country by roadblocks and a media blackout, was plunged into chaos. By May 21, the military had temporarily retreated from the city center, and for several days, Gwangju was under the self-governance of its citizens. During this period, known as the Liberated City, the people of Gwangju maintained peace and order, organized medical care, distributed food, and attempted to negotiate with government officials. This remarkable display of civic cooperation under siege reflected the people's desire not for anarchy, but for dignity, justice, and democratic rights. However, this fragile peace was shattered in the early hours of May 27, when the military launched a brutal final assault. Soldiers stormed the city with tanks and helicopters, retaking the provincial government building and crushing the resistance. The exact number of casualties remains disputed. Official reports state around 165 deaths, but many scholars and human rights groups believe over 600 people may have been killed, with thousands more wounded or arrested. In the aftermath, the Chun regime sought to erase the uprising from public memory, censoring reports, arresting activists, and labeling the rebellion as a communist plot. Despite the government's efforts to suppress the truth, the memory of Gwangju lived on. Survivors, bereaved families, and students across the country continued to speak out. The Gwangju Uprising became a rallying point for democratic activists in the 1980s, ultimately contributing to the June Democratic Movement of 1987, which forced the government to hold direct presidential elections and led to the establishment of a more open political system. In the 1990s, as democracy took firmer root in South Korea, the truth about the Gwangju Uprising was officially acknowledged. Investigations revealed the extent of state violence and cover-ups. The city of Gwangju was recognized as a holy ground of democracy, and the May 18th National Cemetery was established to honor the victims. Today, the Gwangju Uprising is not only remembered as a local tragedy but also celebrated as a defining moment in Korea's democratic transformation. It is commemorated annually, and its legacy resonates with people around the world fighting against oppression. The uprising teaches us that even in the face of overwhelming force, the collective courage of ordinary people can shape the destiny of a nation. President Chun's legacy. Chun's legacy is highly controversial and viewed differently by different groups in South Korea. While his economic achievements are acknowledged, his authoritarian rule and the Gwangju massacre overshadow these achievements for many. His refusal to fully apologize for his actions and repay the fines further contributed to his negative public image. He is largely remembered as a dictator whose rise to power was illegitimate and whose rule was marked by brutal repression. Presidential election of 1987. The 1987 South Korean presidential election, held on December 16, marked a pivotal moment in the nation's transition from authoritarian rule to democracy. This election was the first direct presidential vote since 1971 and followed the June Democratic Struggle, a nationwide pro-democracy movement that compelled the ruling regime to implement significant political reforms. Roh Tae-woo secured victory with 36.6% of the vote and became the next president. Roh Tae-woo's inauguration on February 25, 1988, signified the beginning of the Sixth Republic and the first peaceful transfer of power in South Korea's history. His administration implemented a new constitution that established direct presidential elections, strengthened civil liberties, reduced presidential powers in favor of the National Assembly. These reforms laid the groundwork for a more democratic political system. The 1987 presidential election and subsequent reforms marked a turning point in South Korea's political history, transitioning the nation from decades of authoritarian rule to a robust democracy. These events laid the foundation for increased civil liberties, political pluralism, and active civic engagement that characterize South Korea's contemporary political landscape. We hope you have enjoyed watching the video. Thank you.